Today, I'm debunking a common misconception when working with clients in highly regulated environments. It's a topic I thought I'd address because You Build It, You Run It so perfectly aligns with the objectives of many organisations that are governed by external regulators. Despite that, so many people are still hesitant because they wrongly assume that You Build It, You Run It contravenes the separation of duties requirement that many regulators enforce. And in this video, I'll show you how that's not the case at all, and in fact, how You Build It, You Run It aligns with separation of duties. So first up, what do we mean by highly regulated environments? Really, it's any scenario where an organisation's activity is reviewed and governed by some type of external agency, with a view to ensure they behave in a responsible way for their customers and for the economy. So for example, that could be the financial sector here in Australia that is regulated by APRA, or in the UK, the telecommunications sector is regulated by Ofcom. It could even be an overarching government department or the government themselves because they're beholden to policies and procedures that determine their activity. While each of these sectors is extremely variable, they do have one thing in common. They're bound by policies that are designed to mitigate risk. In fact, many of them are bound by the same policy in regard to how they deliver features for digital services. This policy, which frequently comes up in conversations, is called separation of duties. So what is separation of duties? In its basic form, separation of duties is designed so that no single individual or team is entirely responsible for overseeing every aspect of a critical service. This is designed to ensure that one person can't go in and wreak havoc with customer data, for example. So there's a requirement to implement processes that ensure access or updates to systems are not completed by a single team or person. The idea of separation of duties is largely informed by security standards, and particularly the ISO 27001, the world's best-known standard for information security management systems. So you can see why people immediately ran to Ops Run It as a natural response to separation of duties. People think we need to separate, so let's create a literal split between delivery, approvals and operations, with handoffs and approvals milestones between each team. Sure, that makes sense, but it also prioritises this rigid separation to the detriment of speed of delivery. You cannot deliver new features or innovations at pace in this model, which means in certain situations, working in an Ops Run It aligned with separation of duties is costing you, and costing you a significant amount. If you need separation of duties with high throughput, You Build It, You Run It is the answer. Here's the thing, you can satisfy the requirements of separation of duties without resorting to working in Ops Run It. The core requirement here is that multiple parties are involved in the deployment process. In the You Build It, You Run It model, we create a scenario where no one person is involved in the deployment process, because that deployment is automated and replicable regardless of the nature of the change. It's actually the system making the deployment, and the system is objective and validated by multiple people. You might build out the deployment process associated with your system. That process is vetted and validated by multiple people, which meets the requirements of separation of duties. Then that process is automated and repeated in perpetuity. Every time you deploy, you'll simply engage in that automated process, which has been pre-approved by the necessary stakeholders. You can also implement other controls throughout the deployment pipeline to ensure other people are involved while maintaining the momentum you need to deliver innovation at pace. With the right approach, You Build It, You Run It can ensure that you meet the obligations for separation of duties as enforced by a variety of regulators, and still deliver a high level of deployment throughput. This is the best way to ensure you continue to innovate, create value for your customers, and capitalise on potential revenue that you might be leaving on the table, all without compromising on risk. As always, thanks for watching. If you found this valuable, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll be publishing more videos in relation to regulated organisations, so keep checking back to learn how you can unlock value with You Build It, You Run It. Thanks, and see you next time.